Stock photos are a super fun and untapped medium. For the most part, they're commercial photos, so anybody can license and buy a stock photo, which means that when they're being taken, they have to be both very expressive and very relatable. Everybody has to be able to know what's going on. However, there's this really weird genre of stock photos that's literally called weird stock photos, where you're not quite sure what is going on. They're mostly used in memes. One of the most popular examples is probably the picture of the couple that is holding hands, but the guy is looking at another girl that is walking past them. That's a very famous meme. That's also originally a stock photo. Stock Homo is my first autobiographical project where I shot stock photos that illustrate these certain stories that I have about little microaggressions or homophobia growing up in a small town in Mexico. These are all memories that came up as I was journaling one time, and as I started writing most of them down, I realized that they were all kind of connected because they tell a story about how intolerance and weirdness is just so ingrained to this day. For this project, I had an open call for models to represent certain real people in the stories. And what was really interesting was most of them actually are part of the LGBTQ plus community, which ended up being such a full circle moment. Even though the project was technically inspired by pretty negative experiences, at the end of the day, it turned into a celebration of queerness. When people visit the exhibition, I want it to feel like they're logging onto the internet, so they're visually experiencing basically the internet as a physical space. The walls are covered in the transparency grid that is often used as an aid in visual design to represent an area that is transparent and not opaque. So for example, you can see it mostly in Photoshop as the default background. I decided to cover the walls with it to represent the kind of void that I imagine the internet as. The prints are suspended from the ceiling without touching the walls, and so are the watermarks, to make them look like they are floating. Just like posts are floating in the void of the internet. These vinyl squares are stuck on individually, and it took around 4 people 3 days to cover the entire wall. Most stock photos that you can find have a watermark overlaid on top of them, and it usually says either the name of the photographer or the company. And so I wanted to take advantage of the fact that there is text already inherently in the medium of stock photos and write my stories into the watermark. So in front of each suspended photograph is a transparent sheet with the watermark written on it. And what's actually really interesting is as the light shines onto the set of prints, the watermark casts a shadow onto the photograph, which both makes the text more readable, but also adds this layer of three-dimensionality and connects both the print and the watermark. I almost printed the watermark directly onto the photo and had it displayed as a single print, but the week before the exhibition opened, I had the idea to separate the watermark because at the end of the day, the watermark is a removable layer in stock photos. As soon as you buy the photo, the watermark is removed. And one of my professors actually described it as exploding the internet, which I think is a really good term. From the beginning, I was thinking about the concept of internet food and consuming as something that we do with both food and the internet. So then I was thinking that the charcuterie board that we were going to use for the reception should give the illusion that each element is a post. So this is kind of my debut in food design. Every element of the charcuterie board on skewers. When the Beaus offered me this space, I immediately said yes because I saw these super cute windows, and as a historical building, it has super creaky wooden floors, which are beautiful because you can see the wear and tear from all the previous uses that the space has had. It evokes a lot of history and depth to the experience. There are wooden beams dotting every few feet of the space, and there's also lots of cool elements like copper pipes. For example, this particular pipe is very interesting because it's not exactly touching the wall, and so having the grid behind it kind of makes it pop out. And This, plus having some of the cables dangle down in front of the wall and the grid, I think really visually grounds the project within the space. Somebody at the reception also mentioned that some of the cables dangling made it look like a internet room or like a computer room where you would go to spend time as a kid in your basement. And I completely agree. All of these events happened to me in the same town. Because of this, instead of doing a traditional gallery layout map of all of the photos, I decided to draw a simplified map of the real town and lay the photos in the locations where they would have happened. You can look at them in order or not, but as you look at the photos, it's kind of like you're navigating the town. So ultimately, this project kind of ties in both the gallery, the physical space, the internet, and also the town where the events happened. All three of them kind of get joined together in this visual experience.